Las Vegas, this is NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat.
This is Brian Seth Hurst for NAB Show Live, and we've talked a lot about VR, immersive video. That is the trend this year. That is all the hot thing. It's been a banner year, ton of investment. You can shoot 360 in immersive video, but the question becomes, where do you put it? And the next question becomes, just like any other nascent industry, where do the independent filmmakers go? Where do the commercial filmmakers go? Where is the community? I am with Alex Rosenfeld, who is the founder and CEO of Vrideo. We met a while ago back at the Kaleidoscope Film Festival, which is a film festival for independent VR filmmakers. And I've been watching Vrideo. Now I have it inside my Gear VR.
Nice.
So it makes it a little easier for me. I was a little frustrated on the web, but I'd love for you to tell us what Vrideo is and what your mission is.
Yeah, so Vrideo is an immersive video distribution platform for virtual reality. We've got a suite of products across the web, mobile devices, and VR headsets. Our website, if you don't have a VR headset, is your basic 360 web player. So you don't necessarily need a headset. You could go and watch videos in 360 and use your keyboard and mouse to navigate around a 360 scene. Our Android and iOS apps similarly don't require a headset, so you could have that experience of tilting and panning your phone and looking around a 360 scene.
And you can use your finger as well, right?
That's right, yeah.
To manipulate the image.
But they are also compatible with Google Cardboard and other mobile light VR headsets. So you could have that basic VR experience. And then finally, and probably what we're most excited about is our native VR apps. So like you mentioned, we launched last fall on the Samsung Gear VR. That app's been very well received. And we are very, very busy right now getting our native apps for the Rift, for the Vive, and eventually for the PlayStation VR.
I was actually going to ask you about that because what about Apple TV?
Some of the other folks in the distribution space have launched Apple apps. I think it's a cool thing to do once. It's just not something we see people doing repeatedly. We could be proven wrong, and if so, it won't be that difficult to extend our platform to something like Apple TV. But it's just not our focus at the moment.
So you got, I think, 1.8 million investment right out of the box. Yes. So clearly,
not right out of the box, but early on.
Well,
yeah.
as it happens.
Yeah.
I read recently, in the PitchBook report, that investors were very optimistic because they could see that the ecosystem was in place for quality VR. Like everything was there for it to happen. The creators of VR, let's talk content for a minute. I mean, there are some gems and there's some not so good VR. So can anybody post content at Vrideo? How's the content organized? How do I, as a VR filmmaker, use Vrideo or become a member of the community?
Yeah, so we're a very open platform. Anyone can upload content to Vrideo. We do have basic community guidelines in place, so we're not open to adult content, for example. But otherwise, whether you're an amateur shooting your first 360 video or you're an established media company, you could share your content on Vrideo. And that's important to us. I think, as we go forward, it's our hope to remain just as open as we've been from the get-go. As far as how we organize content, we've got there's a variety of ways. One, we have browsing functionality. There's over 20 categories and over 150 subcategories of content on the site. So that's one way to navigate around content. We've got trending algorithms, so you can see the top videos of the day, week, month, all time. We've got recommendation algorithms. So for example, when you're in VR, after you finish a video, you'll find yourself in a room surrounded by a screen of other videos that are recommended based on the video you just watched.
Which I must say is great inside the Gear, because
makes a big difference.
Finding content is like, first of all, new content. I get your Vrideo newsletter. Yeah. The latest to go immerse myself in, and the content is just exploding. So organizing and discovery is so important.
Yeah, and this is probably the request we get most often for a Gear VR app. We initially didn't have search, and that's something that we're going to be in one of our near-term updates. We're going to be adding search to the VR app.
Going to be voice search?
Milk VR was doing voice early on. Milk VR being Samsung's video distribution platform, and it seemed to get mixed reviews. So eventually we'll do voice when it's good enough. But for now, we have a nice virtual keyboard interface that we already have built into the app when people are creating accounts. So we'll probably just use that.
Yeah, I also like the navigation inside the app. I'm staying on the Gear VR, but you know, when I want to demonstrate something, and I'm speaking to large groups, I just go to the site.
Yeah.
And then I show them, and that actually becomes like a gateway. Like, then I see everybody pull out their phone and want to download the app, and then, you know, go from there. So it's kind of like a gateway. If you don't want to make the investment, at least you can get some sort of idea of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think our thing is, you know, and I find you know, even doing this myself, is that I'll oftentimes watch a video for the first time on the web or on my mobile phone, and if I like it, then I'll add it to my watch later playlist on Vrideo. And then at the end of the day, pop on the headset.
I do the same thing. I do the same thing because I will see something and I will think to myself, that would look so much better inside. Let's face it, when you're in the Gear VR, it is a fully immersive experience, as much as you can get without being in the Rift or, you know, the Vive. But it's a fully immersive experience, and you think to yourself, wow, I've seen this music here. Now I really want to experience it. I really want to be immersed in it. So that's part of the functionality that I love about it. And also the thing that I have to email URLs to people when I see something that I want to share on Vrideo.
Yeah.
So hopefully there'll be a better sharing function all around. It's just not working in any, there's no like sharing function in any of them, but we're still at the very beginning of this really, right? Yeah,
we're doing a few things around making it easier to launch a video into VR on your Samsung phone. So for example, there's going to be more interoperability between our Android app and the Gear VR app, where you can be watching a video on the Android app, click it, and instead of having to go and find it in the Gear VR app, you'll be able to dive right into the experience.
Well, you know, and that actually will save developers a lot of money, because a lot of people that are doing apps are doing, you know, an app that would go for the Gear VR. You click the app, then you put it in your phone.
Yeah.
And then so that's a little bit more complicated. There are a lot of steps. It's nice to see that you're thinking ahead and that the industry is thinking ahead to kind of make access easier, because that's what brands want and that's what content and storytellers want.
Yeah, I mean, that was part of the motivation for Vrideo going way back, where it's, you know, people were distributing these 360 video experiences as standalone files. And it's just not the way people consume content anymore. People want to go to a destination where they can jump from one experience to the next and have all the content discovery and recommendation stuff that we talked about before. So, you know, I think, and you've seen this in an online video, you know, unless you're a property like HBO or ESPN, you know, people aren't going to download your app as a content creator.
Because they're not going to know your brand.
They're not going to know your brand, or just, it's just, you know, no one wants to have to manage thousands of different apps for every kind of content they want. It's nice to have all your content and, you know, on a platform.
So when we first met, you said, we want to be the YouTube of immersive video. Mm-hmm. Now YouTube is doing 360 video. Facebook just upped their resolution. It's clear to me that you could make stars just like YouTube made stars. There can be 360 stars. Is that what you're aiming for?
Yeah, you know, I think you know, and this is just one guy's opinion, I think the stars in VR may end up looking a little bit different than the stars.
I hope so.
But I mean in the sense that, you know, some of the content that works best in VR is interactive content, oftentimes CG. And we're seeing some really great content being developed with gaming engines or content engines like Unity and Unreal.
Unreal 4 is Unreal. Yeah.
So I think it'll be similarly entrepreneurial, but in YouTube, right? It was the teenage kid in his bedroom filming a confessional video of himself, and that would go viral. I think in VR, it may very well be the teenage kid in his bedroom using Unity to create a really incredible CG experience for next to no money.
Well, you know, I also think, just like Hitchcock became a rock star and had his own style, I also think that there are these VR filmmakers that will emerge and become sought after for the kind of stories that they tell.
Yeah.
And the first exposure they could get would be with Vrideo.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean that's what we're, I think, as a company most excited about. I mean, it's great that we see a lot of big media companies and studios right now investing in VR, and I think that investment's important. But I think the people who are really going to figure out how to tell stories with this medium are the folks who are, this is all they do. They live and breathe VR, and they're starting from scratch.
Well, and what's great is, you know, at Storytech, we produce VR, we work with independent filmmakers, and to watch these filmmakers actually hack the cameras and actually hack the environment and hack the stitching to get what they want and to really pioneer the storytelling medium. It's like VR is now moving into the hands of the artists.
Yep.
You know, it was technologists first, now it's moving into the hands of the artists. Speaking of that, you guys sponsored the Kaleidoscope Virtual Reality Film Festival last year. Now they're out on a world tour.
Right, yeah.
And Renee spoke very highly of Vrideo, Renee Pinnell, who's the founder of Kaleidoscope.
Yeah, he's done great things with Kaleidoscope.
Yes, and so those independent, why did you do that? Were you looking for independent artists? Did you want these independent artists to become part of the community? I say artists, but filmmaker artists.
Yeah. No, I think that was a lot of the motivation where, we want Vrideo to be synonymous with the immersive video community, and I think that goes hand in hand with supporting the emerging content creators who are out there creating, already creating some incredible content.
So, Weaver has talked about transport, that they're launching a platform. Jaunt is launching its own distribution platform. Is there room for everybody? Is it like a cable network where there are lots of different channels?
I don't know. I mean, it's not going to be like you're going to have 100 distribution platforms, but it's also not that you're just going to have one or two. I think it'll probably shake out at a half dozen that are really successful. And that's sort of what you've seen with online video, right? Where you've got, YouTube, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, and and each of them are differentiated a little bit. Some of them are more focused on studio content. Some of them have a subscription model like Netflix. I think that's a model for how VR will probably shake out. And
when people think of the Vrideo brand 2 years from now, what do you want to be known for?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I think it's the approach we've taken, and the approach I hope we're able to continue to take is to be an open platform. So whereas some of these guys are focused more on curating content and in some cases largely distributing their own content, we just want to be open to all content creators. This sort of goes hand in hand with that. It's important for us to be device agnostic too. So whereas some of these guys are very tied into certain headsets, Facebook being a good example, where Facebook owns Oculus. Naturally, Facebook 360 Video is going to have a huge presence on Oculus, and to a lesser extent, Samsung Gear VR, but maybe not so much so Google Cardboard.
Well, Google, they just started their own VR division under Clay Baver.
Actually, you want to hear a funny story?
Yeah.
Clay's a buddy of mine from college.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
When he was a freshman, I was editor of one of the big papers. I went to Princeton undergrad. And when Clay was a freshman, I hired him as our business manager for the paper. So
it's a good friendship to have right now.
Yeah. No.
Especially, they. I figured because they own like 70% of advertising anyway.
Yeah.
That 360 advertising is going to be big on Facebook. It's going to be big on Google and YouTube. I don't think I'm wrong about that. Will you do 360 advertising as well?
Yeah, I think I'm a long-term believer in the potential for immersive advertising. I think we need to be realistic in the near term about the limited size audience for VR. So I think it's probably a couple years out. And in the near term, what excites me more is transactional based models, particularly models that
such as pay per view or subscription or
subscriptions. Could be interesting, but might be a little bit tougher right now just because there's a limited amount of content coming out. Vrideo is never going to be a subscription platform in itself. Like, we're not going to go down the Netflix route. But I could see us eventually reaching a point where we give channels the ability to make their channels
premium.
Subscription based. That's something we've talked about. But I think what's more interesting to me is people who are working on really premium content right now, if they want to put that content behind a paywall, giving them the tools to do that.
So one final question, and you don't have to answer it. You've seen a lot of content. You probably get to see everything that comes up onto the platform sooner or later, because if I was the owner of a company, I would want to make sure that I saw everything.
Yeah.
Out of all of the content brands, there are brands now there's Riot.
Yeah.
Out of all the content brands on the platform, what's your favorite and why?
Yeah, there's a lot of people creating great content right now, so it's tough to pick. It's tough to pick just a few. I'll name a couple of folks just because there's personal relationships there. So you mentioned Riot before. We were involved in some of the first VR projects that Riot worked on, and the Nepal Quake project, which is the one that really...
My favorite one, yes. I think the Nepal Quake project was great. But Stephen Christian's story about Welcome to Electro... Is it Christian Stephen or Stephen Christian? Welcome to Electro.
Yeah, I'm not sure, yeah.
He buried the SD cards on the way out. He snuck in from Turkey to Syria, buried the SD cards on the way out, got arrested, went back, got the SD card, stitched it, and released it with Riot. And you start to think of the potential for VR journalism.
Oh, totally. I mean, yeah, it's the reason. There's a reason the New York Times have so quickly ramped up their VR efforts.
Well, and it's interesting to watch. I mean, this could be a huge conversation, but I just saw not too long ago ABC VR. Terry Moran did a piece on, I think it was Nepal, actually. But it was really beautifully done. It was like the first documentary immersive journalism that I had seen that I really liked. I love the stuff that Riot does. There's other stuff that doesn't even follow the principles of great documentary filmmaking. But the audience will decide because of platforms like yours.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Riot. Is there one other one we should look for on the platform?
Well, yeah. So Riot just because it was just a really incredible experience being involved in some of their first forays into 360 video, and then another. And again, this is just on a personal level, the early stuff I've seen from Baobab, which is more focused on CG content. So Maureen Fan is a longtime friend of mine going back to business school.
Yeah, I was very impressed. I'm very impressed with her.
Yeah, and she's incredibly talented. She's been involved in Oscar-nominated animated shorts, and she's assembled a really great team around her. So the Invasion short teaser that she's already released is great, and I'm excited to see what comes next.
That's great. Alex, I just want to, on behalf of the VR community, I just want to thank you for creating a platform where everyone can play and where the great content can rise to the top so people can see the potential of VR. Thank you for being with us today.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I've been with Alex Rosenfeld, CEO and founder of the immersive video platform Vrideo.